All right, Dax. Very good to have you on the show. Thank you so much. Let's talk about camp to start. What's it like for you to be back in camp with these guys from Team USA as you think about these qualifying matches that you have coming up?
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome to be back. Obviously, some really important games coming up, and I think the energy of the group is really good. I think, we didn't start off qualifying too well. I think everybody knows that, but the response of the group was fantastic during the last round of qualifiers. Obviously, huge result against Honduras to get us back on track, and then going down to Panama is never easy. So getting a draw there and getting a valuable point was crucial. So now I think we have a lot of confidence back in the group. We've gotten some strong players in from Europe that just finished up their seasons, guys that are in really good form. So I think the vibe and the mood in camp is amazing, and we realize that there's a lot of pressure on us to perform and to get good results, but the good thing is the coaching staff keeps it light, and the coaching staff wants to make sure that we perform at our best. And so guys are ready to go, and we're just looking forward to our first game Thursday.
Well, that's obviously one of the biggest changes as you talk about things being different is the change from Jurgen Klinsmann back to Coach Arena. So now that you've had a couple of days with him in camp, and I know this is your second time with him, what does he bring to the table, especially as a guy who's been here before?
Sure, yeah. Bruce is fantastic. I mean, he's obviously been through this numerous times. He's been the head coach of the national team for a number of years before. He's been arguably one of the most successful national team managers in the program's history. So his results speak for themselves. I think Bruce, the best part about Bruce is he's a boss who gets the most out of his players. He knows what he wants. He's very direct. He knows exactly what players he wants in what positions, and he puts out a clear game plan for how you're going to attack and defend against an opponent, and then he leaves it up to the players to go execute. So Bruce is an old school coach. He's a player's coach. He's a guy that is a great motivator, and he's a guy that gets the best out of his players. So for me, it's obviously been a pleasure. I actually have never played under him before until this January when I got called up to the January camp, and so obviously, being under him for the first time has been a pleasure. So any way I can help contribute to the team and anything Bruce asks of us, I know guys are willing and ready to step up and contribute.
When you talk about the confidence and a lighter mood and things feeling different than they have in the past, how much does that have to do with the coaching change?
Yeah, I mean, I think that in general, players are more comfortable, when they have confidence and when they're playing at a high level in their favored positions, and the objectives are clear. I unfortunately didn't get called up too much under Jurgen. I only got called in one time under Jurgen, and so I didn't really get a chance to really get to know him that well as a coach. So I can't really speak to the atmosphere before Bruce came in, but I just know that guys. You see a lot of smiles around camp. You see a lot of laughter. You see a very relaxed mood, and it's not relaxed in a sense that it's casual. Because when it's time to step up and do our jobs, it's very serious. But I think in the coaches being able to crack jokes and let guys have dinners on their own. Guys have a lot of downtime. I think that keeps guys really loose and really light. And I think that makes guys' heads clear. And when guys go into games with their heads clear, fully focused on the task at hand, I think you get the best performances out of players. And so I think Bruce is really good at that.
It's After Hours with Amy Lawrence on CBS Sports Radio, and we're spending a few minutes with Chicago Fire and U.S. men's national team midfielder Dax McCarty. You guys are in Denver. You're training. You had the one friendly against Venezuela on Friday night, and there's nothing on the line per se, except you to get out there and have a chance to play with these guys. So what is the goal of a match like that against Venezuela?
Friendlies are very important. The result is not so important, but the performance is important. So obviously you're in camp for a week. You have a game. That's kind of what everyone looks forward to. No one says, "Oh yes, we get to go into camp and just do training sessions." Guys, that's not what guys look forward to. Guys look forward to the games. And so obviously training that's foreshadowing to, hopefully what's going to happen in games. And so, we had a great week of training before the Venezuela game. Obviously, you work on new things, you work on new formations, you work on different player personnel, and then you want to see, the fruits of that labor from training implemented into the game situations, and you want to see how well you do. It's good because games, you can learn a lot about each other. It's a relatively, I wouldn't say it's a new group, but obviously there are a couple new faces together. And, being involved in the national team, you don't get to train with these guys every single day like you do with your club team. So you come together for a short amount of time, you're going to need to get to know each other really fast. And that's what training is for. That's what the friendlies are for. And, push the results aside. You want to learn about each other during the performance. You want to know where you did well, and you want to know what you can improve on. So when the games that really matter roll around, you're ready to go.
You guys are all pros, and so you do this a lot. Some of you play for club teams outside the United States. Others play for MLS. Some do both. You also wear the red, white, and blue. So you're constantly going from this team to that team to this team back to another team. How difficult is that to constantly be adjusting to a different atmosphere and a different group of guys?
Yeah, it's not easy. It's definitely not easy when you have to switch teams, go back and forth, travel, play with different players. That's something that obviously takes some getting used to, and it's not easy. But every player that plays at a high level in the world has to deal with these same different issues, and so for us, we're no different. I think something that's unique about the United States is that we have guys playing all over. We have guys playing in the U.S., we have guys playing in Europe, we have guys playing in Mexico. So that makes the challenges that we have very unique in the sense that, when we do get together, guys are coming from all these different time zones. Guys are on different schedules. MLS keeps playing through the summer. Guys in Europe, they don't play through the summer. And so you have all these different unique challenges in terms of, getting adjusted to different time zones, in terms of different fitness levels. And so these are all the challenges that the coaching staff has to figure out. It's kind of funny. It's like a little bit like a puzzle. You just have to pick the pieces of the puzzle and try to fit them together as best as possible. So when the big games roll around, everyone's ready to go and everyone's on the same page. And so we're professionals. We're big boys, and we can handle a lot of things thrown at us. And I think that's part of the fun of the job, is to be able to travel to different places and meet different cultures and meet different Americans who live in Germany and who live in England, who live in Mexico. These experiences make a team stronger.
It's After Hours with Amy Lawrence on CBS Sports Radio, and we're spending a few minutes with Chicago Fire and U.S. men's national team midfielder Dax McCarty. And Dax, I got to ask you, it's something that's on the mind of a lot of Americans, not just sports fans or even athletes. You're part of a team that travels outside of the U.S. routinely. We do have really great security here and world-class law enforcement inside the United States. But outside our borders, it can be a different story. So as someone who travels extensively and plays in major sporting events with thousands and thousands of people, how much do you think about it when you hear of the threat of terror attacks everywhere else?
Yeah, sure. We live in really unique times right now. We live in scary times where, you're never really quite sure how safe you are. Obviously being American and being in the U.S., you're certainly a target. And so I think the one thing that U.S. soccer, doesn't take any chances on is security. U.S. soccer does a fantastic job of making sure they vet out every single place that we go, making sure they scout the hotel, making sure that they scout the city, making sure that we have plenty of security with us when we travel places. There's nowhere that we go where, worst case scenario options have been thought about 10, 15 times beforehand. So as a player, it's hard to push that to the back of your head, but ultimately you have to do that. You have to do that because if you're constantly thinking about the negatives and the possibilities of bad things happening, that means you're not going to play your best on the field. And so you just have to trust in the process. You have to trust in the fact that, U.S. soccer takes the health and safety of everyone in our delegation very, very, very seriously. But you're right. It's certainly something that is always in the back of your head. But, once you get out on that field, it's like a sanctuary. You can kind of just escape and not think about all the crazy things that happen in the world, and you can just kind of try to focus on doing your job and making a country happy by winning games.
Well, as sports fans, we do like a good distraction, to be sure. So, Dax, personally, you went through what is a really interesting start to 2017 by anyone's standards. You got married. Then you showed up to U.S. national team camp. Coach Arena let you arrive a couple of days late because you were getting married. Then you find out you've been traded from one MLS club to another, from New York to Chicago. I mean, that all happened within a few days of each other. How would you describe the start that you had to 2017?
Yeah, that was crazy. I fit about 10 years worth of big life moments into about a month in that little span there. So that was interesting. It was a tough time for me mentally. I just got married. It was tough on my wife. Certainly not an easy thing to go through. But I think going through things like that, I think they build character. I think I've learned from it. I think it's made me stronger. I think it's given me tons of motivation to continue to try to play at a high level. And obviously, I've always been a guy that kind of plays with a chip on his shoulder. And this is just, the trade kind of reaffirmed that I constantly need to keep playing with a chip on my shoulder to try to prove people wrong. And so I look at, after the initial shock wore off on the trade, I looked at it as a positive situation. I was going to the Chicago Fire, a team with a bright, vibrant culture of winning back in their early days, and a team that's kind of gone through a really rough patch the past couple of years, last place in Major League Soccer the past 2 years. So I looked at it as an opportunity. If I was able to go in there and help this team become a winner again, that's something that really motivated me. And that's something that really pushes me is to try to bring this team back to the glory days where we're winning trophies and constantly fighting for titles. And so that's where we're at right now. And we've had a good start to the season. Not great, but we can still improve. And I think I'm in a good moment right now in my career. I feel great. I feel healthy. And I think I'm playing some of the best soccer that I've ever played. So hindsight's always 20/20. Looking back on the trade, maybe it was the right move for me. Maybe I needed a fresh start. I love the Red Bulls organization. I'll always love them. They'll always be a part of my, my memory and my heart. But at the end of the day, I'm ready to give everything I have for the Chicago Fire and for the U.S. national team. That's where I'm at right now in my career, and I'm focused on doing well for both teams.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad. Last question. There's so much talk about the growth of soccer or the appeal of soccer in the United States. It often gets compared to the sports, the other major team sports that have been around for a lot longer. They're a lot older. So from your perspective, how have you seen it grow in both fan interest and fan support?
Oh, it's been unbelievable. I've been a part of I turned pro when I was 18 years old, and back in 2006, I got drafted by FC Dallas, and the growth from then until now is just astronomical. It really is. It's unbelievable to see. I think back then we had 12 or 13 teams in MLS. Now we have 22. Almost every team has their own stadium. You have really bright, super interested owners who care about growing the game. You have a fan base that is growing every single year. The World Cup constantly brings buzz to the U.S. I mean, it's been truly amazing to see. And so I look at it, I look at my career, and I just think how lucky I've been to be able to be a part of it, say that I've been a part of the growth of soccer in this country. And I think there's no doubt in my mind. It's going to take time, but I think in 15, 20 years, there's no doubt that soccer is going to be competing with the NFL as the main attraction to sports fans in the U.S. It's just such a sport. It's so easy to fall in love with the game. It's called the beautiful game for a reason, and I think once Americans, continue to watch, millennials, I think really love watching the game. We have a really young crowd. And I think the atmosphere in the stadiums is something that everyone is going to fall in love with. So it's been a pleasure to be a part of, and let's hope the game can keep growing at the same pace it has been.
Last summer I did a radio show in which I asked sports fans the feat they most want to see in their lifetime. And by far, Dax, the number one thing was the U.S. winning a World Cup. And so you can be sure we're all watching and cheering when you guys take on Trinidad and Tobago. coming up on Thursday and then on Sunday in Mexico. It's great to catch a couple of minutes with you. You can find Dax McCarty on Twitter at Dax McCarty11, the midfielder for both the national team as well as the Chicago Fire. Dax, thank you so much.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.